Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Oh, good afternoon, good evening. I think this is a good time for those in Europe. It's 11:30 in the AM for me here. Good old British summertime. Took our clocks forward 1 hour. Was it last week? I lose track of time. Not so good time for people in America and Canada, but you can catch it on the replay, can't you? All right. So, talking about the Sebastian Rogers case today, and it seems like in this case, you snooze and you lose because there's so much coming out, so many interviews and pieces of information that I thought I'm just going to talk about it all in a live stream rather than trying to record a video and edit it down. So that's why I'm here. You win the greatest name of this live stream. Paisley, I'm my own boss and kiss no one's ass moon. That's brilliant. Oh, it's evening. Yeah, of course, for those down under. It'll be Saturday evening. So this is a very good time for those in Australia and New Zealand. And I do have some people in Australia and New Zealand who follow my channel. Down under with love being just one of them. Morning, Mike, Krista, and early live. It's very early, depending on where you are in the world. Ms. Marie, Gemma, DMC, Angie. Oh, I said Mike. Who else have we got? Who else have we got in? Crafty. Hello, hello. Angie. Who else? I'm not going to be able to say hello to everybody. There's a bunch of people's coming. But hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. I do have the slow mode on because, well, just to give me a chance to keep up with the chat. I might not need it, given that it is very early for most people. But it's only on 20 seconds. So if it does get crazy, then I can slow it down even more. But I don't think I'll need it. But let me know if it's going too fast. It's not at the moment. We've only got 237 people in, so that's very manageable. All right. So where to start? Where to start? Right. So Chris Proudfoot's been talking. Katie Proudfoot's been talking. And Seth Rogers has done another interview, this time with the Pascal show. Quite like Pascal's show. I enjoyed his coverage of the guys who froze to death, Kansas City Chief fans. I really enjoyed his coverage of that. But he did an interview with Seth a few days ago, and Seth has been back on to clear some things up. So I'm going to play part of that. I've just finished watching it. I've literally just finished watching it because it occurred overnight my time. So it's a good interview. I will play part of it, but I've got the link in the description box for the replay viewers. And once I get to it, I'll put a link in the chat as well. And I'm only going to play part of it, I think there's about 20 minutes that I want to play and comment on. But let's start with the TBI. So they've done a short update. Now, if you've been following this case closely this week, you'll know that law enforcement, like lots and lots of searchers, came out and did a complete recanvass of the area surrounding Sebastian's home. So they did basically what they did in the first 8 days. They went back to double check. Now, what the purpose was, we can only speculate on. The TBI have done a short update on the 3rd. So that would have been Wednesday. So it was Wednesday and Thursday, 2-day search. loads and loads of different counties, sheriff's offices, EMS, the TBI, the FBI were also there searching. So it was right on the back of the press conference. So they had the press conference on the Tuesday where they basically didn't tell us anything new. And then on the Wednesday, they just all they just all like swarmed in. So obviously they knew that this was going to happen. So it's interesting timing that they did this press conference where they didn't have anything new. And then they had this thing planned and they didn't tell anyone. Now, I speculated that they didn't tell anyone because there'd have been loads of media, loads of YouTubers there to greet them, and they didn't want that. They wanted to all congregate and then let the media know. So it was all a bit like panic stations on Wednesday, like what on earth is going on? But it seems that they came and went, they did their 2-day search, and we haven't had any updates. We haven't had any updates because the latest update from the TBI was on Wednesday. Purple AJ has gifted 10 memberships. Thank you so much, Purple AJ. All right, so we've got Mama Bear, Sharon, Momsamo, Jackie, Annie, Heather's, Gig Girl, a different Annie, Bridget, and sending good karma. So welcome, you guys. You get a month's free membership courtesy of Purple AJ. Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much. Did they scan the creek, though? Yes. Not only did they have boots on the ground, they also had boats. So they were doing waterways as well. Now, the creek that Mike is talking about is called Drake's Creek. So I've got the map up here. Now, if we scan out of this, about 5 miles as the crow flies, you've got the Cumberland River here. Now, there's a dam, so it looks kind of big and fat. And then there's like a lake, but it's because it's a dam. And then on the other side of that dam, the river goes back to normal size. Now, the Drake's Creek feeds into the Cumberland River here. And it's difficult to track exactly where it goes, but it passes reasonably close to Stafford Court. Now, it's impossible to tell on the map how deep Drake's Creek is as it passes by. Kind of, it's near the school, like the actual creek. I did track it. I did track it one day. Where is it? Anyway, doesn't matter. But it comes down and it joins the Cumberland River. Is that it? I can't remember now. But I did track it and it comes down, joins here. Somewhere. But anyway, doesn't matter where it joins. Because you can't tell exactly how deep it is. Like, it could be one of those creeks that fills right up when there's been a lot of rain and then goes to virtually nil, like the creek near me. Like, it overflows when it gets rain and then it drops down to literally inches, maximum 6 inches when it's dry. So it's just one of them. And that creek joins the River Ribble somewhere quite near here. But anyway. Okay. Mason, member for 3 months. Thank you. So, yeah. So I'm starting with the TBI before we get into controversial stuff. So that search, don't know why they did it. Obviously, it was a massive effort. It's not unusual that they will come back and completely search an area again. They did that in the Summer Wells case. If you followed Summer's case, they did this massive search for 13 days in Summer's case, and they covered it was 4.5 square miles, but it works out to be about 1.5 miles in all directions of Summer's house. But the terrain there in northeast Tennessee is way more grueling, like, because it's mountainous, than here. Like, here's hilly, but it's not really grueling. So Summer disappeared in June of 2021. Wanderlust, thank you for the $4.99. Thank you. And the foliage and the underbrush and everything was really, really difficult for the searchers to get through and the dogs to get through. And even for the, the overhead scanning to be really, on it. So what they did is they backed out, and the search became kind of the investigation phase. And then once all the underbrush had died down, they came back. It was the end of November in 2021. They came back and did a comprehensive 2-day search. A lot of that was actually via the air. They had a plane, they had drones and the helicopter, but they also had boots on the ground searching the areas that were of special interest to them once the foliage and all the underbrush had died away. So it's not unusual that they will do this as just a matter of precaution, just to make sure they haven't missed anything. So quite possibly that's why they did this search, and they'd want to do it fairly soon, because very soon, spring is going to bring out lots of growth. And if they waited much longer, then they'd have a really difficult time searching because of all of the spring and summer growth of the plant matter. So I think they've done it as a matter of precaution, just to make sure they've not missed anything. But we haven't heard whether or not they found anything of interest. That's right, Pincho. At least I have some ideas on the Summer case. I have no idea on this case at all. I know what you mean. Like, there's even less evidence in this case than there is in Summer's case. Isn't it crazy? Because we've been saying for nearly 3 years, for those of us that have followed Summer's case since the beginning, that we have no actual facts. But we do. We do have some facts in Summer's case. We absolutely do know that a dog tracked her scent. We absolutely know that. The sheriff told us, Dave Rader from Equisearch told us that that a dog did track Summer down off their property. Like, their property is high on a hill, and it's a little bit debatable about how this dog tracked, like which path it took. Dave Rader said it tracked down the driveway. Don Wells has said that it tracked down the dog trail, but whichever way it tracked, it doesn't matter, to be honest, which way it tracked her off the hill. So we've got a dog track in Summer's case. We've also got some footprints that a dog found that are allegedly Summer's. So we've got a little bit of evidence in Summer's case. We've got nothing in this case. We've got nothing. Zero, zilch. Like, it was exciting when we thought that the dog, Max, as we now know he's called, had tracked in the construction site. Canine Dream Dog, thank you for the 10 Australian dollars. That's very kind of you. Thank you. Tennessee has the highest rate of missing children in all states. I'm going to check the research. I don't know. I haven't looked. But they do have quite a few. I've covered quite a few. I should do a live stream. Just going through all the missing people in Tennessee. Like, the ones I've covered that are all still missing. Of course, Summer Wells, Layla Santinello, been missing since last June. Hollin Snap, been missing since October. Caitlin Ledbetter, where there's virtually no information about Caitlin Ledbetter, 25-year-old Caitlin Ledbetter. This was May 2021. And she apparently ran away by jumping out of a window, and she was wearing nothing but like nightwear, like a top and some shorts that you would sleep in like when it's warm weather. And she was barefooted, 25 years old, allegedly ran away. And crazy. There's no information about Caitlin at all. Isn't Tennessee also the highest in trafficking? It's not the highest, no, but it's up there. Is Michelle frozen? I'm not frozen. On my other screen, where I can see what you can see, it doesn't appear that it's frozen. So, yeah, so short update from the TBI on the 3rd. TBI special agents are joining investigations with the Sumner County Sheriff's Office and law enforcement agencies from surrounding counties to conduct another thorough search in the Long Hollow Pike area in reference to the disappearance of Sebastian Rogers. While there has not been any additional information to indicate where Sebastian may or may have been, trained search teams will again execute a ground search in the wooded and open areas around Sebastian's home and neighbourhood. Additionally, we have been made aware that an altered version of the official TBI Amber Alert poster has been made and is being circulated. Yeah, so they didn't like that, that somebody altered the Amber Alert and put a different picture on. So this is the official TBI Amber Alert. So if they found anything of significance, they haven't informed us. So I don't know whether that's good news or bad news. I'm assuming if they'd found anything, they'd have told us by now, because they all packed up and went home on Thursday afternoon. So the Long Hollow Pike area, for those not familiar with the terrain, so Sebastian lives here. And then the construction site where the dog Max did get a scent, but turns out most probably wasn't Sebastian's scent, but Max did do a track, but none of the other dogs were able to locate a scent. And law enforcement are now telling us that there was no track, that he wasn't tracked, which has left a huge hole in the investigation. A huge hole, because how come he wasn't even tracked from his house? Like, we can talk about that later if you want, but I don't know. How come he wasn't tracked from his house? There's lots of reasons why dogs don't find a track that isn't about that person wasn't there. There are various reasons why a dog fails to find a track. But it's only speculation. But we can talk about that. So this is Long Hollow Pike. Like, that's the main road running through, running past. So the media, so that's where you go up to Sebastian's road there. So you go up there and then turn left, and that's Stafford Court. But all the media, you could see them along here. This seemed to be where they focused. They were all in like this undergrowth here. Like they were paying a special interest to this area, which makes me wonder why they did that. I mean, was there a theory? You know, apart from coming back and just recanvassing the area completely. And a theory that I thought of, which relates to this garbage truck issue. So it's just a theory that it's interesting that they searched, a lot of what they were searching was roadways and areas just off roads, like here. Like they were searching in this wooded area, but just off a road. And one theory I thought was that flashlights video that weren't flashlights, the one that Nick Barris released. And Seth has been told that it was actually a garbage truck. So the lights that you see in the bottom left, actually, I'll get it up. The lights that you see in the bottom left, let me just find this. Hold on a minute. I need to organise my files better. Here we go. All right. So we thought when Nick Barris from News Channel 5 Nashville released this, and we all thought that subject 2 could be Sebastian leaving his house. So these are floodlights from a house. And then subject 1 was waiting. And then subject 2 was Sebastian. However, there's this thing that appears in the bottom, which Nick Barris just didn't mention. And it comes into view a little bit. And apparently this is only a quarter of the screen that Nick Barris released. And when this comes into view, this unusual thing is that the garbage truck, like, parked, because we're only seeing a quarter of the screen, so we don't know what the other 3/4 of the screen looks like. And are these two workers going, like, picking up trash bags and stuff with lights on, because, like, lights attached to them because it's dark. And apparently this was about 5 a.m. So that's what Seth's been told. And Seth has seen a longer version of this. We've only got like a minute and a half of it, but Seth's seen about 10 minutes of this footage. And he said it becomes obvious once you see it all, it becomes obvious that it is a truck and not Sebastian leaving his house. And when Nick Barris interviewed Eric Craddock earlier this week, so he got a one-to-one interview with Eric Craddock, who's the chief deputy from Sumner County Sheriff's Office. Eric refused to tell him what this actually was, that it wasn't flashlights, but he refused to say what this actually was. So why the secrecy about this? Now, here's my theory. One thing I thought was, what if the cops believed that Sebastian was run over by the garbage truck? Now, I don't mean run over completely, or else there'd have been a whole mess on the road. Could be high visibility coats. It could be, yeah, the reflection of high vis coats. Didn't the trash van people say the bin was extra heavy? Yeah, that's a rumor. We've never heard that formally said. But I'm just surmising, putting these little breadcrumbs together, that a theory that law enforcement had was that Sebastian was run over by the garbage truck. Now, I don't mean run over like as in squashed, like going under the vehicle, but if you hit from the side, it will fling you off. Now, someone Sebastian's size, if he was walking along the road and it hit him square on, it would pull him under. So that didn't happen because it's messy. It's messy. But if it hit him, it clipped him on the side, then it would move him sideways. So I wondered whether the cops searched the landfill because they thought that the garbage truck people had hit him, like they'd run him over, killed him, and for whatever reason freaked out, you know, thought they'd lose the jobs, or I don't know. And I wondered whether that's why they searched the landfill, and why they told Nick Berris that maybe that video will become more evidential later in the investigation. I don't know. Like in the press conference, Eric Craddock said that they have lots of theories, like they have theories and they test those theories, which is obviously how all investigations work. They develop a theory, you know, something that viably, credibly could have happened, and then they test it based on the evidence that they collect. So I wondered whether one of their early theories was that he was hit, that he'd gone out of his house, the trash truck had hit him, killed him, and they panicked. And that's why they did that search of the landfill. They were only there a day. And then, similar to that, I wondered whether they've come back to search all the roadways and all the areas off the roadways. Because again, if Sebastian had been hit by the trash truck, he may have crawled away and died somewhere in the undergrowth. One of my cats did that once. Like, she just went missing, and I found her about, I don't know, 5 or 6 weeks later in a little shed. It was like a children's playhouse, but made of wood, in my back garden that I never went in. And one day I went in, and there the cat was. Yeah. And she'd probably been hit by a car and crawled in there and died. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the trash truck. If like a hit and run clipped him on the side, he's been not dead but disoriented and kind of crawled off and died somewhere. Sebastian isn't a cat, though. I do appreciate that. Absolutely appreciate that. My point is, if you're hit and you're dreadfully injured, you might be able to stumble, like, for some feet or wherever, and then just fall down and die. That's my point. So I'm not saying I believe that's what happened. All I'm trying to do is put the breadcrumbs together and think that maybe that was one of law enforcement's theories. And that's why he's cagey about this video, the flashlights video. They've come back and searched the roadways, like made particular attention to the areas off the roadways. And they searched the landfill. The dogs would have found the scent. Not necessarily. Would there not be blood on the road? If you're dragged under, like people of Sebastian's size, so he's 5'5", 113 pounds. If you're hit square on, so right in the road, and you hit square on, it's going to drag you under. All right. But if it hits you to the side, like the side of the vehicle hits you, you're flung sideways. Or if you're very small, you tend to be flung upwards. So if you're flung sideways, a vehicle as big as a trash truck might not even know what they hit. It might not even know what they hit if it's just a clip. I'm just saying that I think that that has been one of law enforcement's theories. And if you're flung upwards or sideways, there's not going to be any blood on the road. When my dog was run over and killed, he was flung upwards, and I retrieved him, like, immediately. and there was no blood on the road. There was nothing. There was nothing on the road at all. And the dog was dead. Like right there, the dog was dead. And there was a little bit of blood coming out of his ear, but none on the road. So I don't know. I just thought that might be why they've been a little bit cagey about that video, and they've come back and done that type of search. Just a speculation. I don't know what law enforcement are thinking, but I try to keep my speculations based as much on fact as I can. And I don't know. Am I the only one who remembers the Corey McKeague case? Corey McKeague? No, I don't know that case. So possibly you're the only one. Well, certainly I don't know that case. Corey McKeague. It's almost like a secret military mission. Well, they always keep the cards very close to the vest. They have to. They could tell us more. They could tell us more than they have. They absolutely could. But anything that's, potentially, if this does turn into a criminal investigation, then they do have to keep anything that has potential evidentiary value secret at this stage. I think the truck is just a timeline marker. It could well be. But why? The trash truck came around about 5. You could get that from the trash truck company. You wouldn't need to keep the actual video secret. Proudfoot had cameras inside the house. Did they? How do we know that? Because they said they don't have cameras. So how do we know that they did have cameras inside the house? If he was hit, EMS would have been called if he was found. Well, what if he wasn't found? What if a truck hit him? They didn't know what they'd hit. Like, they didn't see what they'd hit. Maybe they got out, had a look around, and there was nothing there, and thought, oh, we've hit a dog or a deer or whatever, and just carried on the way. And they didn't know. I'm just speculating on what law enforcement theories might be. I'm not saying I believe that that's what happened. I'm saying I think that's one of law enforcement's maybe early theories. Maybe they've discounted it now. There's always a chance he got access to the internet and someone befriended him. Going to talk about that. That's my number one theory still. Even though his mother and stepfather have said that he doesn't have access to the internet, we know that they're not the helicopter parents that they had us believe. So that's always been my number one theory, that he's met someone online or even in real life and has agreed to meet them, and that person wasn't the friend that Sebastian thought they were. That's my number one theory. It has been since early doors, and it still is my number one theory, based on no evidence whatsoever, though. It's difficult to have a theory. Check Bridget Blaine's comment. All right, so I've got to try and find Bridget Blaine. Okay. Michelle, I can put which channel and timestamp about cameras with Chris Proudfoot saying if you want me to. Well, what's the channel? Just tell me the channel and the video. That's all I need, and I'll go and check it out. But they told Nancy Grace that they didn't have cameras. So which is it? Why no tracks barefoot or not if leaving someone? Right, well, I've got theories about that, but let's move on. I'm going to play about 20 minutes of the Pascal show, and then I'll come back. I'll come back to the dogs, because I talk about dogs so much that like people say, Michelle, why do you talk so much about dogs? Why the dogs? Why the dogs? Because I'm into dogs. So like combining the topic of dogs with crime, like when search dogs are involved in a case, then I'm going to focus on it. But I want to play this interview. Before I do though, I'm guessing that most of you will have seen this by now. I put this on my community tab, but I do know that several channels have talked about it. And this is Katie Profoot's response to what Sebastian's dad Seth said on Justin on TikTok's channel about Sebastian being SA'd when he was 8. That kind of came out as a massive shock. And then Seth was also on Court TV. I played the interview, at least part of it, on my video yesterday. He was on Court TV talking about it as well. So there's a 13-year-old. He says that the offender was 13 years old. This was when they lived in California. And Katie had allowed this older child to play with Sebastian without checking on him. And he ended up, this kid, essaying Sebastian. And he's traumatized. So this is Katie's response. So if you've not seen it, then she wrote this on, I don't know, is that Facebook? Anyway, that child was not 13. She doesn't say how old the child was, but she just says he wasn't 13. And we did not allow my son to be abused, but he was abused. So there's that. We contacted all authorities. My son received all the available help he could get. Multiple therapists involved. His doctor did know because he went to the doctor and got checked immediately. Seth was involved in his therapy as well. Now, Seth isn't saying that Sebastian didn't get any therapy. What Seth is saying is that he didn't have the appropriate therapy. So he wasn't having trauma therapy. That's what Seth's been saying. There is so many lies in this story, including him failing to mention where Seth got banned from the base for his violent tendencies, where at the time my son was seeing a psychiatrist and psychologist to help him with his trauma from Seth's abuse and the trauma from being assaulted by this child. Where are we up to? Let me be clear. I think it's sickening that this man is airing my son's trauma online. Now, I don't disagree, actually, that if Sebastian is alive and he does come home, then he's got to deal with the fact that his traumatic childhood has been aired in the public domain for everyone to comment on. You know, that's Sebastian's story to tell. So I do understand what Katie's saying here. I do understand. And I understand, as I said in my video yesterday, I understand that people have been upset by this because it's not Seth's story to tell, it's Sebastian's story to tell. Like if it was known that he was deceased, I think that's different. Bug, welcome. Thank you for joining. Welcome to the Secret Agents Club. Thank you. Yeah, sounds more like Chris, though. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it might be Chris writing. It might be. Having said that, I understand why Seth has put this out. Like, he's just at the end of his tether. He's absolutely at the end of his rope. So I can understand it from Seth's point of view. But I do agree that it wasn't his story to tell, it's Sebastian's story. Anyway, think it's sickening that this man is airing my son's trauma online. My son deserves better than that. When we find him, and I believe in my heart we will, the truth will come out. Don't know what she means by that. What she means by that. He's doing his best to slander us as parents, but my son is loved and cared for and always will be. Public opinion based on lies, assumptions, half-truths is rampant because of things like this, which has nothing to do with finding Sebastian. It does, though. I think it does have a relevance in finding Sebastian because it gives us a little bit of context about how Sebastian was feeling and why Sebastian might have run away or engaged in high-risk activities, like meeting someone online is a high-risk activity. Katie suddenly grew some passion. Yeah. So I think it has everything to do with finding Sebastian because it helps us understand what might have happened. I will not stoop so low as to partake in a back and forth argument with him. God knows the truth, and the truth always comes out. Please stop the madness and focus on finding Sebastian because that is the most important thing. Well, she's not looking for him, is she? So there's that. Oh, I've got an itch right down in the middle of my back and I can't reach it. Do you find it really annoying when that happens? When there's a little itch and you just can't get it? Oh. Chris calling Sebastian a pedo. I know. I mean, that is inexcusable, regardless of whether Sebastian actually did get therapy and it was appropriate therapy or not. Chris calling him a pedo is just out of this world wrong. Out of this world wrong. And if he can say that to Sebastian's grandma, what is he saying to Sebastian himself? Because it doesn't matter what Chris says to Sebastian's grandma, right? In the, the heat of an argument or something. But what concerns me is what he's been saying to Sebastian himself. That's a terrible thing. Okay. So on that note, I'm going to play maybe about 20 minutes of this interview. So this is on the Pascal show, and it was 9 hours ago. I want to clear some things up. Sebastian Rogers' dad, Seth, drops shocking info. So it's bad. It's hard to listen to. It's a 2-hour interview. I'm going to start playing from about the 11-minute mark. So please do go and watch this all. The link for replay viewers is already in the description box, and I'm going to drop this link to this live in the chat as well. If you want to go and listen to this without my commentary, you're very welcome. Okay, where are we? Here we go. Why is it black?
How you feeling?
Okay, all right. I'll turn my volume up my end. Let me know you can hear this okay.
Same as yesterday. Got one goal in mind. That's fine, Sebastian.
Hold on.
Gotcha. Okay.
Hold on. I'm going to put it on 1.25. So I've sped it up a little bit. Just to get through it a little bit quicker. But if it's too fast, I can put it normal. Because I don't listen to anything, unless it's actually live when I'm listening to it, and then I can't. But I listen to everything sped up. So when I listen to something of normal speed, I can't. It's like, they sound like they're asleep. Like, it sounds really slow. So I've got it on 1.25. So Pascal asked him how he's feeling.
Fair enough. Now, we of course we got to get straight into the meat and potatoes of this, right? So are you ready to have some conversations?
I know you got questions. I haven't let you all down with answers yet.
Yeah. All right. So you had a conversation just the other day. You dropped some serious bombshells. I know
will
that
forewarn you that I really don't. I was so tired and exhausted. I really don't even remember the podcast, man.
Wow. Whoa. Really? Really? I mean, I get it. Being sleep deprived, running on just nothing but adrenaline all day long. You were also on many shows that day as well, correct?
Yeah. I mean, everybody wanted a piece of me, and I felt like the pie was empty.
Yeah, I mean, he was absolutely exhausted. And that day that he went up on Justin on TikTok, that's his channel name, Justin on TikTok. He'd been on Nancy Grace. He'd filmed for Nancy Grace. He'd also been on Court TV with Vinnie Politan. So within a 24-hour period, he'd filmed for Nancy Grace, been on Vinnie's show, and then he was on Justin for TikTok. And I think he was just at the end of his tether. And then the following day, he was interviewed on Court TV again by Julie Grant. And like I said, I played that in my video yesterday. And he said even more than he'd said on Justin for TikTok. And Julie Grant was just shocked. I don't think she knew how to deal with it, what he said. So it was a massive like bombshell that he dropped. And I think now the floodgates have opened. And because Seth is so exhausted, he doesn't care anymore. And that's potentially pretty dangerous. I don't mean dangerous as in, he's in danger that someone's going to do him over or something. I mean that he could say things that are detrimental to the case if he's going on interviews and he's so exhausted he doesn't even know what he's saying. You end up opening those floodgates and everything comes tumbling out, and not everything is useful. I think knowing that Sebastian was SA'd, like I said, I understand absolutely that a lot of people don't agree with what he's done because it's not his story to tell. And I do agree with that. However, I do think that's of evidentiary value in trying to understand what on earth went on, what was going on in Sebastian's life. So I see both sides, but I understand why Seth has said this now. Ashley has gifted 5 memberships. Thank you so much, Ashley. Alicat, Brenda, Tweety Lynn, Beth, and Ramona. Welcome to you all. Month's free memberships courtesy of Ashley. Thank you. So I get it, I do, but it doesn't feel good, does it? It doesn't feel good.
Yeah, I get that. But still, no matter what, nonetheless, there was a conversation that was had. You did drop some very big pieces of information, and whether you had said those things beforehand or after, it still doesn't matter. This was live. This was out. This obviously made the rounds and shocked a lot of people. It shocked me too, my brother. I'm going to be real. I was shocked.
I was shocked. I was really shocked that came out. I was really shocked. I wasn't expecting it at all. That the way that Katie and Chris have portrayed Sebastian's life as being, virtually on lockdown and having no friends, and all he wants is friends. It's completely the opposite of that, by the sounds of things. That Sebastian was allowed to play with kids who were up to inappropriate things. Now, whether that child was 13 or whether he was 12 or whatever, still, they were engaging in inappropriate things that resulted in Sebastian being SA'd at the age of 8. I mean, that's bad. That's bad. You can't put words to how bad that is. And now we've got this situation. Also, what Seth said on Court TV with Julie Grant was that wasn't the first time that Katie had put him in harm's way, that he was being allowed to associate with a SO who had been in prison for 9 years for SO, and Katie was allowing Sebastian to be around that person. Now, of course, if Sebastian's never left alone with that person, then there's no threat there, is there? The problem is, was that person left alone with Sebastian? Was that person babysitting Sebastian, for example? You know, how close to Sebastian did that person get? So Seth is saying this is the third time now that his son has been put in harm's way by Katie's parenting. So it's bad.
I'm very, very shocked. But of course, I have some questions revolving around all of that, okay? Or revolving around the information that you gave. So let's talk about it. Because
what did it have to do with Sebastian?
Yes. That information that had to do with Sebastian. Go ahead. What are you going to say?
Mr. Proudfoot, Chris, people were asking why he didn't want my son around his daughter. And he kept telling me that if people keep asking the question, he's going to answer it. And turned around and stated that if he tells them, people will stop looking for Sebastian.
Really? Okay. Can I ask you something before you continue on? I don't mean to interrupt, but I'm curious. When was this conversation that was had? And was that something on a podcast, or was that something between you guys behind, on your own time behind closed doors?
Yes.
So him sitting there saying, I don't want. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
It was over the phone.
Okay. So him saying, if people start asking why I don't want Sebastian around Faith, they won't go and look for Sebastian. If they found out the truth.
Yeah.
So Chris on a phone call is antagonizing Seth. That's how it seems to me, that he's saying these things just to antagonize Seth. That's my opinion. But how, what would you do? Why would you tell a father who's desperate to find his son, who's been out there for, it's nearly 6 weeks? Chris does need to stop. Absolutely does need to stop. Why would you say? Almost like it's antagonistic. Saying, yeah, well, people keep asking me why I don't allow my daughter Faith. And I don't like the fact her name is out there, this little girl. But everyone's using her name. Chris has used her name, so her name's Faith. It's Nina's daughter. So Nina, the ex-wife who did the interview with Trev Time, it's her daughter. And Chris has been asked. It has been. I've seen interviews where Chris has kind of skirted around the issue of not allowing Sebastian to be near Faith. He doesn't want them to kind of be together. And why doesn't he allow Sebastian around Faith? And so Chris, on a phone call to Seth, has said, I could just tell. And if I told the real reason why I don't want Faith to be around Sebastian is because everybody would stop looking for Sebastian if they knew the truth. So you can now understand why Seth has come out and said what he said. Because he's scared that Chris is going to come and say this about Sebastian without the context, without this is why Sebastian is behaving in inappropriate ways, if indeed he is. And we'll hear some of this, what Sebastian's been doing. We'll hear some of this. He's preempting the possibility that Chris is going to come out and say that Sebastian's pedo and turn everybody against Sebastian. So it's understandable now why Seth has done what he's done, that he's preempted it by giving us the context. So it's almost Chris has antagonized him. This stuff is going deep. It's unbelievable. Like, we think that, you know, people are making comparisons between this case and the Summer Wells case, not just because it's in Tennessee, but just how confusing it is. But I think this is worse than Summer's case. I think that the things that we're going to find out about this case, I think it's going to turn out to be more shocking than Summer's case. And that's saying something, given all the drunken rants that Don Wells has done. That is saying something. So,
yeah. That people wouldn't go look for my son.
Okay.
I had told him you don't want to go down that route.
Gotcha. And he said this between you and him.
Katie was on the phone too.
So Katie was on the phone as well. Okay. So what was the conversation like? I mean, was this just a regular conversation, or was this a full-on blown-out argument?
I think he tried to make it one. It wasn't going to be one.
Okay.
I did get heated because I didn't appreciate him saying that, when it's like, dude, it's just another time that you and his mom have failed him. And I'm sitting here trying to put pieces back together.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
My whole issue about that is, if you cared that much for my son as you do your daughter, that you don't want my son around because there's a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
Why weren't you thinking about that when he's under your roof?
No doubt. That's what.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, Chris is going to maybe feel more protective towards his biological child than his stepchild. I know that it shouldn't be that way, but it is. You know, there's a matter of biology there. And when this happened, when Sebastian was 8, so it's 7 years ago, Chris hadn't been in Sebastian's life for very long. So it's actually Katie that should take the brunt of this. Like, we can't blame Chris, really, because he would have been new in Sebastian's life. I don't think that Chris and Katie were married then. Look at Pascal's. What a great pause. What a great pause. But it's Katie that failed to protect her own son. How old is Faith? 6 or 7. 6 or 7. Only a little girl. So it was actually Katie who was whose watch. That's Seth's word. It was on her watch, when she was, you know, meant to be looking after Sebastian, that she let this older child into the household, didn't watch what they were getting up to, and this older child then abused Sebastian. So it's understandable if Sebastian has learnt inappropriate behaviours because of that trauma. It's understandable that Chris would be very cautious about letting his daughter be around Sebastian. That's understandable. However, threatening or antagonising Seth by having a conversation with him when his son's been missing for nearly 6 weeks, having that conversation with him saying, well, if I let the real reason out why I'm not letting Faith near Sebastian, everyone will stop looking for Sebastian. That's the thing that's deplorable. It's not wrong for Chris to want to protect his daughter. That's not wrong. If indeed it's true that Sebastian has learned inappropriate behaviours because of the trauma that he's experienced as a younger child. So it's understandable for a dad to want to protect his daughter from anything inappropriate that she might witness or encounter. The deplorable, unforgivable thing is to have that conversation with Seth saying, well, everyone's going to hate Sebastian. Everyone's going to stop looking for him because he's a pedo. That's deplorable. That's just disgusting. Chris, if you're listening, because I know you watch everything, disgusting.
One thing I'm very curious about as well, and we're going to get to that in just a minute, but what was the reason? What was the origin of this actual fight or argument or discussion on this phone that would spawn him saying that in the first place? What started this?
People were asking during podcasts why he didn't want my son around his daughter.
So this happened because, okay.
People were asking questions.
People were asking questions like the smart, intelligent
Chris,
people that they are. Go ahead.
Why don't you want Sebastian around your daughter? You know, people were asking, Chris, why don't you want Sebastian around your daughter? I see people in chat that were asking me all the time, why doesn't Chris want Sebastian around his daughter? There's your answer.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Interesting. So you're telling me that he looks at Sebastian like some sort of predator?
Yeah.
Wow. But why? Because of what happened to him in California under his supervision, or under him and Katie Proudfoot's supervision?
That and the fact that he hasn't got the correct help. In California, he was seeing a doctor by the name of Dr. Franny at Balboa, and she didn't appreciate the fact that I stood up and used a stern voice with her and told her she wasn't doing anything for my son by letting him play with toys and choose what movie or he gets to watch when he gets out of the thing. That's not helping him. That's not the proper therapy. I'm already researching this. She wasn't. What's the word I'm looking for? She wasn't qualified for that type of therapy.
Okay, so specialist trauma therapy for children is it's very difficult to get in the UK. It's incredibly difficult given the mental health system we have, which is just shot to bits. Specialist trauma therapy for children who've experienced sexual abuse it's a very, very highly specialized field. And there are many therapists that will not even touch that. They won't even try because of the concern that they might make matters worse. So it's a very specialist field. If Sebastian was just seeing a general therapist to help him with his behaviors, like to do with his difficulties communicating and those kinds of things, then that's absolutely not the right therapy to deal with the trauma of sexual abuse. Sebastian's case is also it's also complicated by the fact that he does have the chromosomal deletion syndrome that he does, the 6q27 chromosomal deletion syndrome, which I did a whole live stream on what that is over on Michelle Walks last week. So go and check that out if you want to know more about that syndrome, and also autism. So having a child that's highly traumatized by sexual abuse at a very young age, team that with his intellectual disability in regards to communication and things like that, and having a lower mental age, although he's very intelligent, he's got a lower mental age than 15. So imagine what mental age he would have been at the age of 8. Like his chronological age was 8, but what would his mental age have been? So you can understand why Sebastian has got some now very challenging behaviors to deal with. I mean, it's unfathomable. Oh, my daughter is still waiting for specialised therapy 3 years after she's put on a waiting list. Absolutely. That's the UK for you. That's the UK for you. Furry Goodness, member for 14 months. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you. If Katie is a victim of Chris, what are the chances she will see the truth through all of this? I don't know. I don't know. I think I can't answer that. I have no idea. In the US, therapists you have to take a special course to get certified and take additional classes each year to remain certified. So you believe Seth, Michelle, because Mr. Seth has a restraining order placed on him for abusing Sebastian. I'm not on anybody's side. I'm responding to what is being said. Is he in Alaska? I don't know. I don't know about the Alaska theory. I don't know. I don't know how they could have got him to Alaska. Like the feasibility of being in Alaska and no one's seeing him. Like the travel to Alaska and no one's seeing him. I don't know. I mean, anything's possible, but I don't know. Why was there a restraining order on Seth? Because of the divorce. So somebody put out some divorce papers. I read them on a previous video. And Katie, in these divorce papers, Katie accused Seth of violence against Sebastian. And Seth describes that situation in this interview that we're listening to now. They took a private plane to Alaska. Yeah, but they didn't. They drove all the way to Seattle, Washington, before getting on the plane. So how would you keep a child? Like, you'd have to use the bathroom. They'd have to stop for breaks. How would they be able to keep a child hidden for that entire journey? I don't know. I mean, maybe, but I don't know. And also, why would they take him to Alaska? Didn't Seth use a belt on Sebastian also? That's what Katie said. Seth has disputed that though. That's just what Katie said during a very difficult divorce. There was a request for a restraining order, but it was one ever granted. I don't know, because all we've seen are those two pieces of, what Katie said and what Seth said. So we haven't seen what any of the other witnesses said. We haven't seen the full court, the full court documents. So now they're flying away. No, it's Chris's mother and her husband, who a few days after Sebastian went missing, they went to Alaska. So they drove all the way from Gallatin in Tennessee to Seattle in Washington, and then got on a private plane to Alaska. So, as I said, when I read those divorce papers in a video, I'm not believing one side or the other. These are allegations that were made. It's his word against hers. So I don't know, is the truth somewhere in the middle, or is one side flat out lying? We don't know. We can't answer that. And it's a difficult divorce. And people make all sorts of accusations during divorce proceedings. You missed one day and they went to Alaska. The Bowersox went to Alaska. They're back now, but they took a trip to Alaska. Who paid for the private plane? The Bowersox are wealthy. So the Bowersox are Terry Bowersox, that's Chris's stepdad, and Cassie Bowersox, who's Terry Bowersox's wife, who happens to be Chris's mother. So it's Chris's mother and Chris's biological mother and stepfather took a trip to Alaska. Now, presumably that trip was already planned when Sebastian went missing. So they just went on their trip to Alaska. So they drove from Gallatin, where they live, all the way to Seattle, and then got on a private plane to go to Alaska. So that's that. That's where the Alaska thing comes from. So I'm not believing one side or the other. It could be that one side is totally lying and the other one's totally telling the truth, or the truth could be in the middle somewhere. I'm just responding to what's coming out. No, the Bowerstocks don't want Sebastian. Wouldn't make any sense. I think the argument is that they've dropped him off somewhere and put him in a facility or something and hidden him. But I can't really see why they would do that. I don't know. Who drives to Alaska? Maybe they like doing road trips. I don't know. But they only drove as far as Seattle and then got on a plane. Why they just didn't get on a plane the whole way, I don't know. Daughter of Scotland, member for 32 months. You're my oldest member. Thank you, thank you. 32 months, that's a long time. That's nearly 3 years. All right, let's carry on with this.
Because that's a different type of therapy for traumatic sexual abuse. And that's a different type of class.
All right. And you're sure of that? Are you sure of that? That she didn't have the credentials to handle that type of therapy?
Yes.
All right. Okay. I know that we're doing a little bit backwards. Okay. But I do have a lot of questions that we got to go all the way back a little bit. Okay. So I understand that this happened in California. And we got to dive into it a little bit more so we understand a little bit more of this information. Because you did drop this on Justin. Shout out to Justin on TikTok. And it was shocking. Okay. But you did say that in California,
Sorry, guys. I'm muted. Sorry, guys. I was just responding to one question that I saw. And does Katie have any relatives? Not impressed with the Profoots. Katie does have relatives. I'm not muted now. Katie does have relatives. Dave Payne, who is Katie's dad, did speak out on Facebook very early on in the case. Just kind of posting that his grandson's missing. But none of Katie's family have spoken out since then, spoken out publicly. And honestly, I don't blame them, to be honest. And I haven't looked into them. You know, if they don't want to be involved, then I don't look into anyone who hasn't spoken out. If I do, I don't make it public. I might do it behind the scenes, but I don't make it public. All right, let's carry on with this.
California, while Sebastian was under Katie Proudfoot's supervision.
Can I interrupt you for?
Go ahead, by all means. Go ahead.
All right. A lot of people are, this is the information that I'm giving is facts. It's not me trying to throw punches or whatnot. But this is the third time that something major has happened to my child underneath their watch. And they need to own it. They need to own the fact that they have fucked up yet again. And I'm sitting here being Sebastian's voice. Because right now he doesn't have one until we find him and find out what happened. All right. I've told everybody you're innocent until proven guilty.
Right.
That's just the way the system works. There's nothing I can do about that. That's the way the system works. And that's the way it should work. You're innocent until proven guilty.
Mm-hmm. Now, I understand that I believe that you are telling the truth. I don't think you have. Why would you sit here, go out of your way, not spitting facts, right? So it wouldn't make any sense for you to just go out of your way to just talk wild suddenly out of nowhere.
I don't think that Seth has made this up. I don't think anybody would put that information out about their child if it wasn't true. So regardless of all the mud that was slung during the divorce, which may be 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, or the truth somewhere in the middle, this particular disclosure, I think is true. I don't think he would make this up just to get at Katie. I honestly don't. If it is made up, then that's disgusting. But I don't think it is. I think what he's saying here is true. And Katie has kind of said as much. You know, Katie in her response did say that the child wasn't 13, but she doesn't say it didn't happen. Yeah, Broken Goth Doll. Katie argues the details, not that it happened. Yeah, Katie has not said it didn't happen. So I think we can say that absolutely Sebastian was essayed by an older child. I think we can take that as truth.
And aimlessly in some sort of way. And I don't think what you're saying right now and what you've given to us is aimless or doesn't have any clout, isn't backed up with proof, which of course I am very curious about some of these things as well. But what I need to understand though is that this happened under her supervision in California. Is that right or wrong?
That's right.
Was Chris involved in that at all? Because I think that's one thing that a lot of people are very curious about as well.
Chris was living with her then.
Okay, so who is this kid? Who is this 13-year-old kid, if he was 13, 15, whatever age he was, who did this unthinkable thing to Sebastian? Who is the kid?
I hope that nobody releases the identity of that child. I hope that child's identity remains a secret. Imagine what the internet would do if the identity of that child became known. So if he was 13, then he'd be 20 now. So he'd be an adult now. So please, let's not release the identity of that person. That should be something for law enforcement, not for the internet. Now, Seth doesn't say the child's name, but let's not, please. If anybody finds out who that person is, please do not release it. Please do not release it.
I don't know his last name. Sheriffs wouldn't give me his last name.
But why not?
California CPS children under the age of 13 and under are actually protected. So they wouldn't give me any information. They weren't letting me do anything. The only thing they let me do was I asked him if I could contact the school psychologist, if he could sit there and tell the school psychologist the person's name so that the other children that was around him would not become victims as well. And I went as far as finding out, the parents, from my understanding, the parents told Katie and Chris that their kid picked it up off of watching YouTube. Me personally, I have never seen like that stuff on YouTube. So
neither have I. So
no, there's no way that a child would learn how to sexually abuse another child by watching YouTube. That's nuts. But it is good that at least things were discussed to protect other children from that child, and also for that child to receive some kind of help, because at the age of 13 or however old that child was, that's not normal behavior for a 13-year-old to engage in. I mean, yeah, there might be, exploration and things like that, but to actually abuse like a younger child, that's not normal. That child has got problems, and that child deserves to have that situation looked into, because that child's learned that from somewhere.
What is he watching on the tubes that would give him the disturbing education like that? That's what I'd like to know as well. Huh? So he learned this
with his age. I would have to say that somebody was abusing the child.
Huh?
It had been probably going on for a while for him to think that it was normal, so he did it to my son. That's why.
I agree with that. I think that child had learned that from somewhere. So we've got now Sebastian, who potentially, allegedly has partaken in inappropriate behaviors because he's learned that. And that's why Chris is scared to let his daughter around Sebastian. So if we're saying that Sebastian needs to have the appropriate therapy and support, which he absolutely does because of that abuse, then that child who did the abusing at the age of 13, the same has to be said for him. And I hope that he did get the appropriate support and therapy, and his case was looked into because he learned that from somewhere. So did he learn that from being abused himself? I think probably yes. Certainly not from watching YouTube, but he learned that from somewhere. So it's like passing on a nasty virus. Like once abuse happens in a very young child, then it takes a lot for that child to heal. And the victim to abuser cycle, there is a cycle. But most males who are abused as children do not go on to abuse other people. Let's just be very clear on that. Just because you're male and you were abused as a child doesn't mean to say you're going to go on to abuse anyone else. But in certain individuals, certainly ones who are very vulnerable, there is that cycle that does occur. And that cycle has to be broken. So I hope that that child did get support, and I hope that that child's case was looked into, and if they found who had abused that child, I hope they achieve the wrath of the courts. Hopefully.
I'm asking about my son having the correct therapy to get him back on track. I mean, he's autistic. He's not mentally as old as he is physically. I mean, he's smart, but delayed in learning. He's physically 15. Mentally, he's probably 10 or 11, and he's going through adolescence. His body's producing hormones that he has no idea what's about. And I don't think things are lining up in his brain like they're supposed to, because obviously he's got a 6q chromosomal deletion syndrome, and he's got diagnosed with autism.
Understandable. And I get it that what he went through is a lot to process, no matter if he had autism or not. Being a kid, 7 or 8 years old, that's a lot to process as a kid.
It is. That's a lot for a 7 or 8 year old to try to understand. That's why trauma therapy is so important for young children who have been abused for a multitude of reasons, not just to stop them from being an abuser themselves, but for a whole range of reasons. We absolutely have to work harder as a society, a lot harder. And unfortunately, mental health services are very low on government priorities. They certainly are in my country anyway. And that's wrong. That's completely wrong. I knew someone for a very long time who was the CEO of a survivor service here in the UK. I haven't spoken to him since I stopped working as a psychologist, but I was in regular contact with him for many years, and he was a survivor himself, and he set up a support service which has done a lot of good, and he's campaigned for years for the UK government to put more money into trauma services, because we know, these are facts, we know the majority of men who go to prison for violent crimes, not just sexual crimes, but for violent crimes, have been abused as children, physically, sexually, or emotionally, or all of them. We know that. That's a fact. We also know that people who are abused when they're young are more likely to need the services of mental health services and drug and alcohol services because of the fact that so many of them self-medicate to a degree where addiction becomes a real, potentially life-threatening situation for them. So this guy that I spoke to, his name's Bob. Bob has campaigned for years and years and years and said, look, if you put the money into trauma services for children and young people, you will save money on mental health services for adults. You'll save money in drug and alcohol services. And you'll also see a reduction in people committing violent crimes. And every point that he makes is backed up by research, by very good research, by numerous strands of research. But it falls on deaf ears because what governments are not good at is prevention, is seeing that, hold on, if we put the money in early trauma services, it will prevent many of the people who seek services as adults or who become addicts and are not productive members of society or who end up in prison. That level of prevention, they can't get their heads round. They can't get their heads round. And I'm sure it's the same in the US as it is in the UK. I'm sure all the same problems are there because children do not get the adequate support when they're abused, or if they've got a mental health problem like that's related to something else other than abuse. You know, heal the children and you don't get the level of adult problems. It's a no-brainer for me. It's an absolute no-brainer. But it is what it is. We don't live in an ideal world, do we? Exactly, Harry Potter's beard. Statistics aren't the full picture. So much goes unreported. Absolutely. Absolutely. Like when talking to government agencies, you can only quote the statistics that you've got available, but you know full well that the circumstance of what's really going on is way worse than what the statistics will project. So I worked in that world for a long time. Totally demoralizing. It really is.
I can't even imagine any child going through any of that. But question though, did you know of this said kid? We're going to use 13 years old. I know Katie Proudfoot said he wasn't 13 years old, and I get that semantics or technicalities, but I'm just going to call him the 13-year-old kid from this point on. Okay. So did you know anything about this 13-year-old kid before you heard about this tragedy and this trauma that was inflicted upon Sebastian?
I did not.
You had no idea about this child. Okay. So then how did you find out? Because in the interview with Justin on TikTok, okay, you said you made it sound like you expressed some concerns about Sebastian hanging out with this 13-year-old kid while he was about 7 or 8 years old, and you were uncomfortable with it. And then, of course, this tragedy and this trauma was inflicted. So I want to get some clarity on that. Did you not know about, did you have a strange inkling about this 13-year-old, or did you find out after the fact from Katie Proudfoot that this trauma was inflicted upon Sebastian?
Katie Proudfoot, who at that time was Katie Payne. I found out from her. She said she had contacted CPS on the other family. Therefore, I found out from her, and CPS spoke to me, and that's when I started dealing with CPS and the sheriff's department.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Me and Katie used to communicate a lot more than we do now.
We're going to talk about that in a second. But real quick, as soon as you found out about this tragedy that happened to Sebastian at 7 or 8 years old in California, what did you do?
I immediately contacted the sheriff's department. I wanted to find out what was going to happen to the child.
Okay.
I wanted to, what they were going to do to protect my son, protect this child that more than likely has been a victim already. and what they were going to do to prevent it. And I don't think the sheriff's department did anything. Another time that the law has failed our children.
I mean, we don't know that the sheriff's department did nothing. We don't know that as a fact, but that's just how Seth perceived it at the time. It may well be that they did nothing, but I hope and pray that that's not the case. That at least there was some level of investigation, and that child who was the offender, that case got looked into. Because if it didn't, then I'm lost for words. Absolutely lost for words. Cassie, TN is the 10th of the list of missing children. California's the 1st, so Tennessee's the 10th. How does that relate to population size, though? Because actual numbers of missing people is relative, isn't it? So if you've got a state that has got lots and lots and lots of people living in it, then that's going to have a higher number in absolute terms. So you need the relative terms, like relative to population size. So I don't know whether those statistics exist or whether they can be worked out. Isn't Seth in law enforcement? Yeah, he's a jailer. He's a corrections officer. He works in Davidson County Jail as a sheriff's deputy. So he's not a police officer. He works in corrections, but he is a sheriff's deputy. That's right. The 13-year-old child is likely a victim that needs investigating. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. I'm going to play about maybe 10 minutes more, maybe a bit less. But there's an important point that we're getting to that's really bad.
Because I know that you said on the interview as well that you couldn't do anything because of the state, because the state that you're in, because of the state of California, that you couldn't press charges on this 13-year-old kid. Can you explain to me why you couldn't press charges on this kid? He just committed a crime, allegedly. So why couldn't you press charges on this 13-year-old kid?
Because of his age. 13. They won't press charges against a 13-year-old for that. What was told to me by the sheriff's department. You know, my son got upset because I didn't tell him I knew. Thought that his mom hadn't told me. And he got upset one day, and I was like, son, I do know. And if you ever want to talk to me about it, you can. But at the same point in time, I was trying to take care of things on my end. You know?
I get it. I fully get it. I think it's crazy to me that you couldn't do anything. It doesn't make any. I don't get it. I mean, I don't live in California, and I don't know, the law out there. Yeah. But I am still very shocked. What were you saying?
I said, but you wear LA gear all the time.
I do. I really do. I really, really do. Maybe I'm trying to manifest something. You feel me? But careful, still, right. But still, I am quite curious as to why that seems so odd to me that you couldn't do anything in the state of California when a crime was committed against your son during.
It is a difficult one. I don't know what the law is in California, but I know in the UK, the legal age of criminal culpability is 10. So a 13-year-old committing a sexual offence against an 8-year-old, that would be punished in the UK. I can tell you that. They'd go to a young offenders institution, and that would be the best place for them because they would get better services than if they were on the outside, which is crazy. It's crazy to me. But I don't know the law in California, so I can't confirm or deny anything that Seth is saying here. So I don't know.
In that time, it still does blow my mind. But when you found out, going back to it, when you found out from Katie Proudfoot at that time, can you tell me where was your mindset? How did that feel?
I really don't want to state that in public.
Okay. Fair enough.
My big thing. He just had his innocence taken from him. it took me a minute to digest, and it took me a minute to figure out the proper way to go about it instead of, someone just hurt my baby. So,
Of course, I get that. And I know that you were, I mean, when you talked about it the other day, we all saw that emotion. We all know. And I think we also second that emotion as well. If we were in those shoes as well, we would be just as shocked.
there's no apology for my behavior. I got upset. I was mad. I'm exhausted, and it takes a while for me to get to that point. But first of all, I don't like people trying to hold something over my head.
Yeah.
Something that, happened under their watch, and he needs help, and we're finally getting him the help he needs. It's late, and now I gotta find him.
Right. You are absolutely right. So then tell me then.
Absolutely. What this comes down to is what this has all resulted in is a missing child. And there's absolutely no evidence that we know about anywhere. Hopefully, I'm just hoping that law enforcement do have viable leads that they're following up on that they can't tell us about at the moment. But yeah. So people who were saying that Seth should have done more to protect Sebastian, he couldn't at that point, because Sebastian was living with Katie at that time. And Seth only found out afterwards that this had happened. Seth still thinks he can be found. Yeah. And hopefully he will be. Hopefully he will be found. I'm not saying I'm holding out a great deal of hope that he'd be found alive. I mean, it's still possible. It is still possible, but the chances are slim. The chances are slim.
And because I feel like you suddenly out of nowhere, and understandably, I feel like you hit a wall. You got emotionally exhausted. I mean, of course, if I'm putting words in your mouth or emotions in your head that weren't really there, please stop me while I continue. But I feel like at some point you hit a wall. You were at wit's end. You had enough. You were tired of being diplomatic, tired of being the nice guy. And you said, you know what? F it. I'm going to rip the Band-Aid off. Everyone's going to hear this truth, because you know what? I don't know where he is. And these other two are not supporting or helping me in the search for Sebastian. Am I anywhere near close to why maybe you started to put this information out for everyone to hear?
My son is a victim. And if victims don't get the proper help, they repeat, because all of a sudden they think it's normal. Son's autistic. And if he doesn't get the proper help, we don't want him to become that. So you do preventive maintenance, and you get him the help he needs. And there's multiple different ways, but if you're not certified in the proper way to get him help, you're just gonna make it worse.
That is very true. That is very true. Very true. That he needs help educationally, but he needs specialist trauma services. Now, Seth has said that Sebastian is now getting a good level of therapy. He said within the last year he's getting a good level of therapy. So hopefully that in some ways will make up for the time lapse between getting that good service. But it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah. No, I get that. I fully get that. So then, okay. You had a conversation, a not so.
Sorry, guys. Is there any mods in? There isn't any mods in. Green Goblin. I know I've deleted one comment. Ban me. Yeah, I will ban you. Right. There you go. Bye-bye. Let's make some people mods. Need some more mods. Right. Who wants to be a mod? Let's mod some people up. CW, would you be a mod? I'm adding you as a moderator. Because you're always in. Who else is always in? Broken Goth Doll, do you want to be a mod? You're always in. Let's mod you up. Who else wants to be a mod? Oh, Lana's in. Let's have a look. Flicking Bollocks, you're always in. Let's get you as well. All right. So you don't really have to do anything as a mod. Just do what you normally do. Watch the chat. And then if anybody's ridiculous, anybody's silly. All right, let's get back to this. So we're getting to a really bad bit coming up.
Pleasant conversation with Chris Proudfoot and Katie Proudfoot on the phone. It was a heated argument, heated conversation. Chris Proudfoot said something along the lines of, people are asking about why I don't like having Sebastian anywhere near Faith. And if you keep on pushing me, I'm about to air everything out. I'm about to air all this dirty laundry, whether you like it or not. And guess what? No one's going to want to support or try to find Sebastian. Am I correct?
I'm sorry. What was that?
Oh, that was a long thing I just said. That was a lot of work. No, I got you. But
I was reading something. My bad.
You're good, homie. You're good, homie. There's a lot of people here that want to know the truth and understand what's going on. So I'm going to repeat it one last time. Okay. So you had
made them. This is the last time.
No. Time out, bro. Hold up. Well, what I'm trying to understand here, so that everyone understands as well, is that you had a not so pleasant conversation on the phone with Chris and Katie Proudfoot. And during this argument or this conversation, Chris said something along the lines of, everyone keeps on asking me why I don't like having Sebastian anywhere near Faith. And I will air that stuff out if you keep pushing me. And guess what's going to happen? Nobody's going to want to look for Sebastian because of his past. Am I correct?
Wow, you cut out there bad.
Okay.
But yeah, just the way you were saying, sorry, because I lost everything on there.
It's okay.
It keeps freezing on my end. Yes, me and Chris and Katie had a conversation, and Chris asked me, people are asking me this question. If they don't stop asking me this question, I'm going to have no choice but to tell them. Well, now he can sit there and tell them. At the same point in time, I know that I know that his daughter, Faith, FaceTimes with my son all the time and considers my son her older brother. And he considers Faith his little sister. And if he's anything like his dad, we're supposed to protect the young ones. We're supposed to protect our sister. We're supposed to protect people. And that's one of the things I've been trying to instill with him to combat what has happened to him.
No, I'm still trying to understand a little bit more about this too, okay? This tragedy happens to Sebastian against his will. It's not like he decided to have this crime committed against him. It happened under Katie Proudfoot's supervision. And yet Chris is still trying to hold that over your head as if Sebastian's some sort of monster. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. This is an innocent kid where this happened to him. So I don't get that part.
Chris doesn't see him as innocent. It would be the only thing I could say. Honestly, you have to. I know that, I know that my son has done some questionable things, but at the same point in time, he's not understanding what's going on, and nobody's talking to him about it.
So
I don't even know if they teach the same things at school that they taught us, because we had sex education class. We had sex education. We had human biology. I mean,
right.
I don't know what they teach the kids in school anymore.
Seth, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
So Seth, I got to ask you, when you say questionable things, that Sebastian has done some questionable things, I'm not asking you to go into gritty details or anything of that sort, but I'm wondering, what are these questionable details that would make Chris not comfortable having Sebastian near Faith? Can you expand a little bit on that?
I don't know if that violate YouTube or not.
I
But
mean,
when he pulls out his wiener in the men's bathroom and you're like, look, this is mine. What's yours look like? I mean, that's innocent kid shit.
right.
That for me threw up a whole bunch of red flags, and that's what I wanted to get to. And for me, that is the worst thing that we've heard so far. Not in what Sebastian's doing, but what how do I put this? In relation to what might have happened to Sebastian. So I'm gonna leave that interview there. So I've played quite a bit of it. I've played from about 11 minutes. It goes on and it's 2 hours 16 minutes. So it's they go into more, but that's the point I wanted to get to, because that's the point that's really, really alarmed me. Really alarmed me. So this is in the Pascal show, and I've got a link to this interview in the description box for replay viewers, and I've put it in the chat now. So if you want to carry on listening to this interview and you don't want to listen to any more of this live stream, then I won't hold it against you. His channel's called The Pascal Show. So let me just make this a bit bigger and then you'll see. Why will it not show me? It's The Pascal Show. Why will it not show me his name? Why will it not show me his name? But it's The Pascal Show. That's his channel name. So he did an interview with Seth a few days ago. So this is his latest interview with Seth. Lindsay, member for 13 months, 1K plus in the chat, hit the like. Yes. If we get 1K likes, which is possible, if we get 1K likes, I will give 20 memberships away. So it pays to hit the like button. Now, look, guys. Let's just imagine the scenario that Sebastian doesn't understand that getting his wiener out in the men's bathroom and asking, what does yours look like? He might do this with the mental age of 10. Seth said his mental age is around 10. Now he's 15. So he's got raging hormones that all teenagers have. But yet he's got a mental age of around 10 with a sexual abuse history. And he doesn't fully understand that people are going to take that. Predators are going to take that as a come on. And that's where I'm finding this so difficult to explain. But Sebastian looks like a young man. It's for me, knowing that that's something that Sebastian has done makes me wonder whether Sebastian hasn't done that. He's done it in the recent past, and a predator has taken that as a come on and has thought, oh, this lad's up for some fun. And he's given Sebastian a phone number to ring. And Sebastian has rung that number. And surely it's within the realms of possibility that even as late as the Sunday, so remember, Sebastian was out and about on Sunday, So they went bowling, they went to BJ's, they went to the Texas Roadhouse. What if Sebastian, on that Sunday, met someone in the men's bathroom and Sebastian said something inappropriate that he didn't fully understand? Someone has taken that as a come on, has given Sebastian a number to ring, and Sebastian has rung that number. And they've met up. And that predator has not let Sebastian go home. Now, that's what jumped in my mind when I heard that from Seth. That's something that jumped into my mind, because it's been my number one theory all along that Sebastian was lured away. Sebastian was lured away by someone he met online. I know it is very triggering, Beth. It's very, very triggering. And I think we're getting into some really deep stuff that is going to trigger a lot of people. And I promise I'm not going to play any more of this interview. I'm just going to use that as a speculation, because that's where my mind went. It's where my mind went. And I think it's a logical conclusion to draw, that if Sebastian has been behaving in an inappropriate way for a bunch of innocent reasons, that he's got this trauma history, he doesn't understand that there's predators out there, he doesn't understand that, you know, that everybody isn't nice, and he said something that has been a come on to someone. And when they met up, Sebastian has got into a situation that he just could not get out of. So I'm not going to play any more of the interview, because it's Pascal's interview, and it is only a few hours old, so I want Pascal to get the views for it. So I'm not going to play any more, but please do go and listen to it all. They do talk off this very, very triggering, very difficult subject. They talk about other stuff as well. But it's made me feel more certain that Sebastian may have been lured away. Or even that this predator has done this before, and the predator doesn't use a phone number. That the predator meets people in bathrooms and tells them where to go. What's my theory on what happened? My number one theory is that Sebastian was lured away by someone, that he went to meet someone, and that's why he's not in the immediate vicinity. That's my number one theory. It doesn't mean to say that I don't have other theories. Let's talk about the scent. Now, look, I can't go down to Sebastian's house. Not allowed, because earlier this week I had a video removed that contravened community standards. All I did was do a Google drive-by of Sebastian's house, and I paused at Sebastian's house for a few seconds and said, we heard on Nancy Grace that these are the lights on one side of the house, this is Sebastian's bedroom, and Sebastian had to go in this direction, so to turn left out of his house, or to go around the back of his house, like come out the back, because if he went the other way, if he turned right, he'd have been caught by those lights, and he would have been seen on the neighbour across their surveillance. because it was all said on Nancy Grace, right? And I just paused for a few seconds. My video got taken down. It contravened community standards for doxing. So somebody reported it for doxing. And I didn't get a strike. But I'm guessing that if I get another video taken down for the same thing, I will get a strike. And I don't want a strike on my channel. So YouTube has done me a favor by just telling me that that's what they've done and not giving me a strike. They could have given me a strike for doxing, but they haven't. So I'm not going to go down to Sebastian's house, but no scent. Right, look. It is a problem that there's no scent. But there's loads of reasons why dogs don't get scent. So I've talked about scent dogs, search dogs so much on my channel because dogs and crime go together for me. So let's imagine that Sebastian left his home in the early hours. Did he even produce scent? Everybody produces scent. Everybody produces scent. Now, let's go to the beginning. So, dogs pick up scent in two ways. From the air and from the ground. And, you know, from foliage and stuff. Actually, what I'll do, I'll show you a video that I took. Let me just get it up. Now, this is a video that I took of... No, it's not that one. This one. So this is just 8 minutes. So before I start playing it, this is a video of me letting Cassie go wherever she wanted. A few years ago, there was a little trend on YouTube, and it was called I Let My Dog Take Me for a Walk. Now, I did it several times with Tilly. I also did it with Poppy, who was my Jack Russell who died in 2021. She was hilarious. She took me all over the place. And I thought that I would do it with Cassie. But I only got the bright idea of filming partway through the walk. So I'm not going to use this as my I Let My Dog Take Me for a Walk video. I'm going to film another video and put it on Cassie's channel to see where Cassie went. But this is Cassie taking me for a walk. So we're going down all these little ginnels. And at this point, I got this bright idea. Because Cassie's on a 30-foot line here, right? So I follow Cassie wherever she wanted to go. So this might give you a good demonstration of how dogs actually navigate their world. So I can just play this while I'm talking through this bit. So there's two ways that a dog gets scent, from the air and from the ground. So what you'll see when Cassie's walking along, now this is an area that she knows very well. Not only is she stopping and sniffing, oh, there's a dog behind one of these fences. So these two Muppets here, Tilly and Noodle, get proper excited. So I had to pull them back. Cassie ignores dogs behind fences, but them two are just nuts. So she's stopping and sniffing, and she's just getting information. But also she'll be looking, because when dogs are on the hunt, they also use their eyes. They also use their ears. They use all their senses. It just happens that a dog's primary sense is its sense of smell. Ours is vision. So she's just scouting about, heading in that direction. She just keeps stopping, sniffing, just following her nose. Checking that I'm behind her, checking that out. But because she knows this area well, she goes to all the usual places. So she checks out a bunch of usual places. Now, how does this relate to a search dog? Right, Cassie here is behaving in the way that just a normal dog would. If a dog takes itself for a walk, it just behaves in this way. Right, they trundle along, they stop, they sniff, they're just scouting about, seeing if there's anything interesting. In the wild, if a dog's hunting for food, it's doing exactly this, just a little bit more urgent. So they'll use all their senses once they get hungry to start to hunt for food. So they use their sense of smell. They'll scout for scents on the air. They'll sniff the ground to see if there's a track of something edible. But they'll also use their vision and their hearing, just like we do when we're navigating our world. Now, what she does here is interesting. She stops. Now, I think she's waiting for me to give her a direction, and I'm not speaking. So she stops, but she's air scenting. I zoom in here in a minute, and you can see her nose twitching. See her nose twitching. She's looking, she's listening, and she's air scenting. And she decides that this direction is the way to go. I don't know why. I don't know why she chose to go that direction, but then she changed her mind. So there's nothing especially of interest to Cassie at this point. She's just scouting about, right? She's just scouting. How does this relate to search dogs? Right. So to train a dog to either search for a specific scent, like drugs or cadaver, or to search for human scent, all it's doing is honing in on their natural abilities. All you're doing is to, instead of this dog just scouting about like Cassie is, you're saying to that dog, when I give you this command, then you search, you scent out this particular scent that you've been trained to. That's all you're doing. And it's honing that dog's natural ability. Now, this environment that Cassie is walking in here is full of scent. Full of scent. People walk through these little ginnels, these trackways every day. There's dogs behind a lot of these fences. There's a lot of cats. I call this, where we are right now, Cat Alley, because there's always cats. So Cassie and Tilly and Noodle, who don't really care, are bombarded by lots of different scents of varying strengths. Cassie's not following any particular one. Now, if there was a really strong scent of a cat, she'd be tracking it. She'd have her nose down, she'd be tracking it, but she's not. So nothing's passed by in the very, very recent past. There will be things that have passed by a few hours ago, but nothing is standing out to her. So when you train a dog to track a certain scent, if that scent isn't very strong, even if it's there, it doesn't trigger that dog to deem it especially important. So Cassie, she's got a track now. So whatever it was that she's tracked there, she just did a little track, went through that fence to the right. If that fence wasn't there, she'd have gone there. So whatever passed by, probably a cat, went through that hole in that fence. I can be sure. So she's coming back. She's lost the scent. She's just having a see whether there's anything else. She always looks in that. I don't know why. So when you have a search dog you're just honing, you can sniff out chocolate. The only thing Tilly's interested in, apart from other dogs, is pizza. If you lose a pizza, call on Tilly. She'll find it for you. I guarantee she'll find your pizza. But if there's scent out there, but it isn't particularly strong, a search dog isn't going to follow that track. Oh, yeah, the police dogs are highly trained. Now, we use, in the UK, we use German Shepherds, Belgian Shepherds, and Springer Spaniels. Those are the 3 breeds that the UK police force use most. So, regular police dogs that are out on the beat are either German Shepherds or Tilly's Tangles, German Shepherds or Belgian Shepherds. They use Springer Spaniels for scent detection more than other breeds. Springer Spaniels, because they've got an excellent sense of smell. They're small, they can get through small places. They've got so much stamina. So Springers, like Cassie, tend to be used. They don't tend to use bloodhounds in the UK. On a regular, search organisations sometimes train up bloodhounds. But they're big, they're a little bit cumbersome, and they can be very stubborn. Springers are more biddable, they're more trainable, and they're smaller, and they've got more stamina. Oh, yeah, dogs have got Olympic gold noses, they do. They do. That's another thing, Michu. How soon were the dogs out there? Now, this video ends right now. Now, how soon were the dogs out there? Now, we know that Max, who got a track in this area near Beach, which is here, so in between Beach High School and the construction site, Max got a track. We heard that on the dispatch call. Michelle, what's your point? Listen. Max got a scent. Max was with the first responders. And we saw from the dispatch that Max was out there between 7:47 and 8:17. Right. So he was with the first responders. Now, later that day, once more search teams got on the ground, they had other dogs. Let's imagine that Sebastian heard his mother going to bed and then snuck out. Let's say Sebastian went missing at 1 a.m. Let's just give it a time. We don't know. Let's just give it a time. Yeah, I have heard about the body parts wrapped in tarp in Salford. Yeah, it was yesterday. Yeah, I have heard about that. Michu, just hold that thought. Scent lasts for 4 days. I'm getting there. Right. So let's imagine that Sebastian snuck out to meet someone at 1 a.m. By the time the scent dogs got out there, who were searching specifically for Sebastian's scent, you're probably looking at maybe 9-10 hours. Let's just, I'm speculating on the time. It might have been longer. And remember, dogs search for scent in 2 ways: in the air and on the ground. In the air, scent only lasts a very short amount of time. So if you send a dog out to track a criminal that has jumped over a fence and jumped into some woods, that's an easy track, because that person is not only dropping scent on the ground as they're running, but there's scent in the air. Like there's the strong scent in the air. That's an easy track for a dog. But when a scent's more than a few hours old, the chances of having a scent still remaining in the air is minuscule, because you've got the wind. So all you've got left is the air, scent that's dropped onto the ground. Right? As you're running, your scent dropping off you, like scent particles are dropping off you and are falling on the ground. You've also got the scent directly from your feet. Now, obviously, if you've got thick boots on, then you're not dropping scent off your feet. But if Sebastian was barefooted, which his parents think he was, then there would also be skin cells that the friction of Sebastian walking on the ground, you'd be sloughing skin cells. So the ground scent would be there. Now, a ground scent on an artificial surface is very different than a ground scent on a natural surface. So an artificial surface like a roadway, concrete, tarmac, that kind of thing, that ground scent dissipates very quickly. It doesn't, that type of artificial surface doesn't hold scent. It literally blows away, especially if it's on a road where you've got vehicles traveling. It's going to throw that scent off. It's going to disappear that scent. Scent on natural surfaces like grass, mud, clay, that kind of thing can last for up to a week, if not longer. A very, very good dog can track a scent a week that's been laid down a week ago. But that has to be ideal conditions. Ideal conditions. Now, if somebody's moving from different ground surfaces, that confuses the dog. If you're on a natural surface and that scent has pooled onto that surface, and then you move onto an artificial surface, that dog will lose that scent if it's more than a few hours old. Because you've got the scent on the natural surface, the scent on the artificial surface will have all but gone after a few hours. And that dog loses that scent. If you switch from ground to water, even though a dog can get scent from the water, it's a very, very different medium. So if Sebastian walked out of his house down his driveway, that's an artificial surface, after a few hours, there'd be no scent left. Not that would be discernible by the dog, not that the dog would deem important. Because remember, Sebastian lived there. So Sebastian's scent is going to be all over that area, going to be all over that property because Sebastian lived there. So what that dog's got to try to do is find the strongest scent. And if that scent is on an artificial surface more than a few hours old, that dog's not going to be able to discern that recent scent from the fact that Sebastian's scent is all over that area. So that's why I think there's no track from the house. That's just my opinion based on what I know about dogs. So if somebody arranged to meet him, the chances are they're not going to just roll up at his place, are they? They're going to meet him somewhere where nobody's going to be around. So I'd say here. Because a lot of these are houses now. When Cluminati's driven round, Dolly Vision's driven round, there's numerous creators that have driven around this area, and this is all houses now. Like Google Earth, Google Maps hasn't updated for a while. So if that person arranged to meet Sebastian, let's say behind this church or near his school in these woods, and then something bad happened, it would be very easy to get that for that person to get that body away with many hours to spare. The restaurant CCTV could be crucial, yes. It absolutely could be. And that may be the reason why they're not releasing any surveillance footage. It's just a theory. Just a theory. Now, if Sebastian went out the back way, went out of his back door, and again, I can't go down to the ground level, but if he went out of his back door and he didn't go down his driveway, the dog's got a better chance of picking up a scent if he went the back way, because it's all natural surface. But for whatever reason, they didn't pick up a scent. Now, it doesn't mean to say that Sebastian didn't leave his house. Doesn't mean to say that at all. There's many situations where dogs, for whatever reason, do not pick up a scent, if that scent is more than a few hours old. Yes, I do think the police know more than they're telling us. I do. So that's where I am at the moment. That it really concerns me that Seth has said that Sebastian can behave inappropriately. He doesn't understand what he's doing. His hormones are raging and he's curious. And if he said something that is deemed to be a come on by a predator, that is a recipe for an absolute disaster. Absolute disaster. You're pronouncing his name wrong. What are you talking about, Dolly? So I think the chances of Sebastian being lured away by a predator are pretty high at this point. But that doesn't mean to say that that's the only thing that I think could have happened. At the moment, it's all speculation. We don't have the benefit of the police files, do we? We don't. So we can only speculate based on the little bit we do know. And the little bit we do know is that there's absolutely no evidence of anything. So it's all theory. But for me, it explains understanding dogs and understanding how dogs navigate their world. For me, explains why the dogs may not have picked up a scent of Sebastian leaving. It is educated speculation, yeah. Because I understand dogs way better than I understand people. And even dog handlers sometimes don't understand what their dog's telling them. So somebody asked me what my theory was. That's my theory. But it doesn't mean to say that I'm right. It doesn't mean to say that something completely different happened. We just don't know yet. We just don't know yet. We don't know. You know, we're missing. I think we're missing big pieces of the puzzle, because we don't know who else Sebastian came into contact with. Like, if Katie was okay with Sebastian, like years ago when he was little, being in the company of someone who'd been in prison for 9 years for sexual offences, if that was okay by Katie, how do we know that she'd not been letting all and sundry like look after Sebastian or be in the company of Sebastian? How do we know that it's not somebody else known to Sebastian, like, you know, who's done something to him? Like, I just think we're missing big pieces of the puzzle. And I think that's why nothing makes sense, because we've not got all the pieces. It's like trying to do a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle when you've only got 200 pieces. You know, you can put things together that start to form part of the picture, but then you can't go any further. And then you've got another few pieces that create another picture, you know, bit of the picture, but you can't match anything up. That's where we're at with this case. That's how I feel we're at with this case. There's big pieces missing, because I don't think that what we've heard so far from Katie and Chris can be believed, because they're changing the story. Life will be better. Thank you so much for joining. Welcome to the Secret Agents Club. Going to start from the beginning. Yeah, I'm about done. I'm about done. So yeah, that's where I'm at. And until we get more information, and I do think that the actual reality of Sebastian's life, I don't think we've heard. I think things are going to get worse. I do. I think things are going to get worse. The things that we hear are going to get worse. Do I know anything about those two women that went missing in Kansas? Not very much. I've been following like the news channels that have been talking about it. I know that they're suspecting foul play now. And to be honest, it has to be foul play. I can't imagine anything else it can be. Like, given it was in literally the middle of nowhere. It has to be foul play. I mean, it's a wide open space. You know, it's like desert, so it'd be easy to find them if they, you know, I don't know, broken down and went to walk for help or something. They'd find them. What's the truth about the mattress? I've no idea. No idea. They found something near the car suggesting foul play. Yeah. Yeah, they did. So based on the dog scent situation, dogs would have somewhat of a timeline. Not necessarily, because scent dissipates at different rates depending on the weather, depending on the exact surface, and then the ability for a dog to detect it varies with the dog. So there's a lot of variables there. But I would imagine that if Sebastian left, let's say at 6 o'clock, just before his mother went to get him up, and the scent was only 4 or 5 hours old, it would be more likely for a dog to have got a track from the house than if the scent was 10, 12, 14 hours old. Because the more recent the scent, the easier it is for a dog to detect. And it's not that the dog won't detect his scent. The dog will detect his scent because he lives there. But it's about that dog actually finding that scent interesting enough to follow, because the dog will look for the strongest possible scent and follow that. Katie's car. The dogs searched the car, like all the vehicles. They ran dogs around the vehicles. But of course, a scent dog in Katie's car, it's not. Yeah, Sebastian was in there, so of course the dog's going to find a scent in the car. The interesting thing would be the cadaver dog. Now, the cadaver dogs haven't alerted on anything as far as we know. So it leads me to believe that either Sebastian is hidden so well, you know, in the local area that he's just been missed by everybody, or he's been taken out of that area and he's not there. He's absolutely not there. He's been taken out of the area. And if that's the case, he could be absolutely anywhere. Has the RV been searched? Yes, I believe so. Anyway, I'm going to go. Cassie's come along to tell me that I've been on here long enough. I think she needs to go out for a wee. So I'm going to take that as my my message to get off here. So thank you all for joining me. Let's see what the next round of information brings. Cadaver dog sniffed in the trunk boot. I believe so, yeah. I believe they ran cadaver dogs. Don't forget, if you want to, Michelle, look at the stream, clutch them pearls, 1 hour 46 minutes about cameras. All right, I will do. Was that last night? So the only thing I've watched this morning was Pascal's. Because remember, I'm 5 hours ahead of Eastern. So when Justin's on, he's usually on in the middle of the night for me. If he comes on early, sometimes he does an early stream, then I can catch him live. But I'll check that out. All right, guys, I'm going to go. Thanks for joining me. Thanks in the main, being respectful. I only had to ban one person who was a clown. So thanks for the donations. Thanks, as always, to the mods. And, yeah, I shall see you very soon. Very soon. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye, guys.